Good morning, everyone. I'm Anjana Narayanan, and we are gathered to do the live session on TWA Energy Influencers 2020. TWA stands for The Way Ahead, and The Way Ahead is SPE's publication for young professionals. It is a publication by and for young professionals. And the TWA Energy Influencers is a new initiative by TWA, and it is an initiative to identify and recognize outstanding young professionals, and their work positively influences and inspires others. In these live sessions, today is the first session, and we'll have two more sessions. We will feature these influencers. We invite them to the show, ask them a few questions, get to know about their work, and also have a chat at the end of the session with some questions from the audience. So as you're watching the show, if you have any questions, type in the comment box, and we will try to answer them as much as we can after we talk to the influencers. So for today, we have four of the influencers in the studio. Andrew Coit.
At Invenium right now is to provide a complete transparency. So to do that, what we do is we analyze each asset, and by asset I mean oil and gas wells or leases. So we analyze each asset and forecast each asset based on financial performance and production performance. So when you do a bottoms-up analysis, you look at asset by asset and micro analysis, and you build it up to a company level. Then you can find insights which are not easily visible when you look at the company from the top to bottom. So that gives us a complete picture of, and you can find localized trends also. So if some company have big name, but if you look at micro level, they can have problems in a localized area. So these kind of patterns are very visible if you look at micro level analysis. So the machine learning is the main part of it, because to handle that amount of data, because if you're looking at US, more than almost 1 million wells are active. So you have to do data analysis and forecasting for those million wells, and then you have to build it up to generate trends. So that's like the main part of the data. Other part of the whole job is the visualization. So once you have a lot of data, it's easy to generate data, but it's hard to generate insights. So visualization is also very important part of that. So that comes back to the second question, where like the skills set that you say. So there are some skills that are everybody knows about them now, that you should learn Python, you should learn R, you should learn SQL, and you said you should have a GitHub repository of your work. But I think one more important aspect will be learn visualization tools. Anything, you can pick anything, Spotfire and Tableau, and you can learn how to make the data more insightful, so people or managers who are looking at your data can take actions. So and so you want to provide actionable insight to the people. And other thing I would also say that a lot of the programming things have been developed already. They have modules. It's very easy to use. So for the young people, I would say that think about the application instead of more going into how the language works. You should think about how it will work in energy field or whatever field they are interested in. So how they can help, because our application of these modules are very easy nowadays. So use cases are getting like, if you know the use cases, if you can provide the people with possible use cases, that is going to be very important.
That's some very interesting, deeper digs into learning the data skills, Pushpesh. I have also read that there are, publicly available data that you can play with that's made available these days. Do you suggest there are lots of free courses and there are lots of also paid courses. Do you suggest taking those?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, data science field it's so vast right now, and you can find infinite number of resources online. I have a list of like online resources, and if somebody contacts me, I can share it with them. But it's so much out there to learn, but you can easily get lost in the content. So I would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like stick to one or two resources, and then just learn the basic first. Then instead of going into that deep, you should go into your own industry and energy industry as such, and think about the use cases, because it's very easy to get lost in like all the resources out there. But that's the good thing about the data science field right now, that a lot of people are sharing free resources online. Everything is open source, so it's easy to do it. For oil and oil related data, there are some. EIA has a very good data repository that you can directly go and download. And Dallas Federal Reserve, so Dallas has a very good repository of data related to energy. People, they can download for free. IEA has a lot of data repositories that can be accessible for free uh, for starting. And then even in University of Houston, they are providing courses where they invite people from industry to give lectures. So that courses are also very focused towards application of data science into the industry. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. You mentioned that you have a cheat sheet of resources. I'm contacting you. I'm going to contact you on behalf of TWA and maybe share it as an article with the readers. So
Okay.
expect an email from me. Um, so the other thing that crosses my mind when we talk about data skills is that I'm also hearing this increasingly that it's as the domain expertise, that is as important as having the data skills, and kind of like a balance of both what seems to be the prescription for the best application for the industry. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think because especially in the current price scenario, and as we know that oil and gas industry is a very cyclic industry, so there is a lot of capital discipline that has to come into the industry, I think. But I think data is going to be the driver of identifying those pain points, which can introduce capital discipline for each company. So instead of having toll on people who are employed in the company, they can improve system internally. And data is going to be the main driver, because energy industry that produces a lot of data, and there are a lot of things to be done there. So that's definitely a field that is already a lot of companies are going into that direction, but there's still a lot of scope to do that development. But yeah, I think the cost saving, and it's going to be beneficial for both people who are working in the industry and both companies who operate these assets.
Thank you so much, Pushpesh. We had an interesting chat on many things. And before I let you go, I have one last question for you. It's on your SPE volunteer role. You are a active member of the SPE Gulf Coast section. You're a member of the data analytics study group.
Yeah.
So, for those who are watching, what tips can you tell young professionals on how to make the best use of SPE resources towards the data science and data analytics?
Data analytics study group has a wonderful collection of people. I joined that group because I started going to their events, and they invite people every other month. They invite people from industry who present their use case studies. So it is important to develop your horizon and like get that kind of thinking, and how machine learning applications are applied to the energy industry. Because if you go online, a lot of applications are towards other industry, computer
Yeah,
engineering or medical industry. So
yeah.
those events provides you a different way of thinking, to use already developed tools to go there. And then being involved in the group provided me a lot of opportunity to learn from people who are working as a leaders in their companies, to develop the strategy of how to go about involving digital transformation and data analytics. So and especially right now we are looking for volunteers for next year. So if somebody is interested, it's a very great opportunity, great set of people. And I think it's very important to learn the leadership skills also, because you will be involved in organizing of the event, and like how to deal with uh, all the different aspects of organization of a big event. So I would say right now is the best opportunity if you go online and just apply for being a volunteer. Even if you don't want to be a volunteer, I would just check out their events. It's a eye opener and very good learning set, I guess.
So kind of like a win-win, both technical and soft skills
Yes.
building.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Soft skills also, because you are interacting with people of different background and different places and different expertise.
Yeah.
So you learn a lot of skills about how to talk and how to articulate a problem better, so people with a different diverse background can understand the problem.
And one other resource I can also recommend is to the viewers is check out spe.org/DSDE. SPE is publication on data science and digital engineering, and subscribe to that newsletter. It has the latest in digital in oil and gas. Thanks so much, Pushpesh, for being here. Stay on the show, don't leave yet. We'll take some questions from the audience, and we'll next talk to the fourth influencer on the list. Thanks, Pushpesh. Viewers, we are doing the SPE Live, TWA Energy Influencers 2020. And we have the final influencer now to chat with, and it's Shubham Mishra. Shubham, welcome to the show. Shubham is a senior reservoir engineer. He's an innovative problem solver, and he is also an active member of the SPE Mumbai section. And he is also an animal lover, and he's passionate about promoting animal rights. Welcome to the show, Shubham. Please tell us where you're calling us from today and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Anjana, for the introduction. Hello, everyone from around the globe. It's an absolute honor to be here among you and the influencers and listen to their inspiring stories. I'm calling in from Mumbai, India today. As you rightly mentioned, I'm a senior reservoir engineer working with Schlumberger for a little around 6 years, based in Mumbai. I work with the software integrated solutions product line of Schlumberger, where I'm a part of multidisciplinary team, where we work on consulting projects for operators and support the Schlumberger software suite. I have done a bachelor's in petroleum engineering from Indian School of Mines in 2014, and I've been blue-blooded ever since. So.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Shubham. So you have done a lot of work on reservoir engineering, and you have published 13 papers, and you hold 4 patents. So what's your area of technical interest in reservoir engineering?
Well, it's very generous of you to call it a lot of work. In my opinion, I've just started, and I'm still learning every day from the stalwarts of the subject. As far as areas of interest are concerned, most of my work is basically focused on applied reservoir simulation, wherein I try to model the fluid flow through reservoir, discretized in time and space. I also work sparsely in fluid dynamics and rock physics studies. I'm intrigued by the power of integration of multiple domains with reservoir engineering, so I also try to learn about petrophysics and geocellular modeling. Not all of the publications that I have are heavily focused on reservoir engineering. Some are also on some revolting ideas because I have this knack of going against them. So you would find publications on ideas such as development of oil field in a constrained city environment. So you'd find a mix of such topics in my publications. As you might have guessed by now, for me, diversification is the key. But my diversification is a little different from everybody else's, in the sense that I would not be guided by external factors such as industry focus or peer suggestions or business focus. I would want to diversify into a spectrum of the industry where I feel a bit of passion and a personal touch added to it. So this is my most important advice to all the young professionals listening to us today. Energy industry today is at a juncture where it is diversifying into courses or spectrums which were not existent before or not feasible. And each of this diversification is almost like a startup that presents unprecedented opportunity for young professionals to grow immensely in a short span of time. So all you need to do there is to stay put, concentrate, work hard, persevere, and outshine. And I can assure you that there are enough opportunities to grab.
That's a very interesting angle to diversification and also a very inspiring little message there, Shubham. Thank you for that. So I'm not surprised then to ask this next question. You seem like a problem solver. I think, when I read about your bio, it seemed like when you see a problem, you get into the problem solving mode, I'm guessing, to come up with a solution. And there was a mention of a situation where you came up with a solution for improving reservoir recoverability. And the difference was like an 85% improvement. That was a significant difference. Leave out any proprietary information that you need to, but what was the problem and what was the solution you offered? And that's my first question. And I'm equally curious also to know about the thought process when you problem solve. When you try to come up with a solution, do you already think the pros and cons at your end, do the risk assessment before suggesting it? And how does it feel when your solution gets accepted and it works out? A lot of information, I guess I packed in one question.
Oh, that's all right. So this study was in fact presented by me at SPE ATC 2017, and it was later published in Journal of Petroleum Technology, Volume 1 of 2018. So let me put things in right context. So I was a very small part of a very competent consulting team that we had, and we were working with a premier oil and gas company in India. So we did this study and came up with 2 observations and findings that were very relevant for the field we were working with, and that sort of changed the philosophy of development. So in a usual case, we would have stopped there and handed over the recommendations to the operator. But because sister product lines of Schlumberger were also working in the execution of the project, so we went ahead and started working in design phase. That's when the technical experts of multiple product lines sat together and started brainstorming on how to bring maximum value for the operator. So even before we could go into the field and implement the recommendations, the operator had already intervened in some of the wells which were in the recommendation list, and they found results which was exactly matching with the recommendations. So that sort of boosted their belief in this entire endeavor, and they were with us as a team to make this a success. And finally, when we went there and did the interventions in the wells that we had recommended, it actually came out quite close to what we had recommended. That was a great success for customer. They published it in their annual report, and a success for customer is also a success for service provider. So we were also very happy. Coming to the part where you mentioned how do I or how can anybody get solutions for these problems that we are dealing with, a room with 15 or 20 people, and we are trying to figure out ways to solve a problem. I pick on the important points from people, and that's when I try to integrate them to prepare a solution. So that's very personal to me, and that's what happened here, and I'm thankful that it worked. So.
Excellent. I mean, I agree. Every success is a team success, and everybody play, each of us play our part, and integration is key. Ask you about your patents. You hold 4 patents. What are they on? And also, is the process cumbersome, or is it straightforward? If there's a young professional listening who has a great idea and she would like to file for a patent, what are your recommendations? I know there are country-to-country differences, but just how to do it. Any tips?
Sure. So I'm going to present another contradiction here. I've already talked on my idea of innovation. So, so when I'm trying to find a unique solution to a problem, I usually get inspired from existing things. So for me, reimagining an existing thing in a new way is very powerful, and it can give you great results. It has worked for me, and I can prove it that's not wrong because some people support this definition. So I picked this habit when I was preparing for my high school exams and writing short stories. So I used to reimagine existing stories and build a short story, and that worked for me. I got high marks. So At work, this translated into integrating technologies to prepare workflows. So I remember it was late 2016. I was working with my geophysics and basin modeling colleague, and we were trying to solve this problem of how to better identify a new well location in shale reservoirs. We built a prototype, and in January 2017, the invention was filed. That was the first stone, and that boosted my morale like anything. And then I moved to integrating not just modeling technologies but also acquisition technologies and lab technologies. Obviously, my contribution was heavily around reservoir engineering, but I could have this vision of integrating blocks to create this entire closed loop workflow. And all of this work was an evening project because I'm not based in an R&D wing, and it was sheerly the motivation and the interest to go there that could bring all this up. As far as filing an invention is concerned, so the first thing that anybody needs to do is to fact check whether the novelty of the concept has been established. So I've been very lucky that I am part of one of the very strong technical communities of the industry. And I'm ever so grateful to all the subject matter experts and domain advisors who steered my path through this. But what you want to do before you start filing your invention is to go through an extensive literature survey, talk to subject matter experts, and find out, is your idea really novel? Once the novelty has been established, then you would want to think about business proposition of the idea, because whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, you would not want to waste a lot of efforts in hefty patent filing if the idea is not of much business value. Yeah. Once you've done this, now is the time to sit with a patent attorney to frame a patent memo. And at this point of time, you need to take a couple of decisions. So which type of patent do you want to file? Is it going to be a national patent, provisional patent, or a full-time patent? Or and which patent office do you want to apply it in? Because patent is restricted geographically, so a patent of USA might not be protected in India. So these are some of the key decisions that you need to take here, and then you are ready to file your patent. Keep in mind that some of the times you may not be able to file your invention as a patent because the management would think that filing a patent would be an exposure to leaking the information to the competitors, and thus they would like to keep it as a trade secret. Some of the times you would not be able to file a patent because management would think that wasting too much effort is not worth it, and they would want it to be a protective publication. So it's not a very cumbersome process. At the same time, it's not a very straightforward process. You have to be smart throughout the project, throughout the process, and just get it done and be happy with whatever is happening, because at the end of the day, you are an inventor. So if any more information is required on this, I would be happy to take up, but a patent attorney would be of great help.
Thanks, Shubham. So it was wonderful having you here. And before we go to take some questions from the audience, I have just two quick questions on your volunteer roles. And the first one is, you are an active member of the Mumbai section. And I read about an event called YP Fest, which happened over 14 days. I mean, was it really 14 days? You were the YP committee lead last year for the Mumbai section. How was the experience? And after we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about your animal rights passion.
Sure. So this is something very dear to me, especially because the team and we had put up a lot of efforts to see this happening, and it was really tiring. It was really driven with hurdles, but we sort of crossed each of them and finally made this happen. So let me put a bit of context to this response. So when I was elected as YP chairperson of SPE Mumbai section, the YPs, particularly of the section, were not performing very good because there was this fear among the students who were entering as professionals that the industry future is bleak, and they were less interested towards activities of the society. I could sort of relate with them because when I started my career in 2014, there was a downturn, and I went through the same phase. So I started targeting this population, because if this population would turn around, the YPs would turn around in a big number, and that's when I framed the YP committee. In the YP committee, I made a special impetus that I would keep a large number of young SPE members, because I felt that if this crowd hears from one of themselves or a near senior or junior to them, then it would be really easy for them to get in. And that's when we started organizing isolated individual events, but that didn't bear good results because we would see a spike in the participation and then it would die off a little bit after the event. So that's when we sat together and we brainstormed how to make it a permanent thing. And that's when everybody came up with this idea of a YP Fest. So yes, it was a 14 days long event, which was scattered in different parts of the city. And we identified the two key elements that we have to deliver in here. The first one was ensuring that the participation is there. And the second one was ensuring that we have support and sponsorship from the companies that are there in the section. So we split ourselves among these groups and started catering to these problems. We would work all day in our respective jobs, and in the evening we would get together. We would work on the weekends, and the team worked tirelessly on this. And finally, we could pull it off. So we had 6 or 7 events in the 14 days long festival. We had a cricket match, football match, 3 technical sessions, a cloth donation drive, and a plantation drive. And after this, we had suggestions, feedbacks, and sometimes criticisms pouring from the YPs all across the section. But the most important thing was that we got the ball rolling, and that was very fulfilling to all of us.
Excellent. I mean, there was a cricket match. I think that was, inspiring enough to get them back into engaging with the section. So viewers, I have one last question for Shubham, but if you have any questions for the speakers, please type in the comment box. After this last question with Shubham, we would start taking those and presenting it to the speakers. So tell us about your passion for animal rights protection. And you started an organization in the university which worked with PETA to protect animal rights. And do you have a favorite animal? Maybe you like all of them.
Sure. So this is something that I feel that I've picked up from my family. So when I was a child, I saw my parents and siblings caring for animals around us, be it stray animals or pets. Then there was a distant member in the family who would protest against the poor conditions in the zoo. So I believe that, and I never had any reason to think against it. And as I grew up, I started reading more about it, and my resolution got more and more profound. So as I entered the university, I got this platform where I could make an impact and make people think on a very important cause that they had been ignoring. So I started a student chapter with PETA. As you might know, PETA is People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, an international NGO working for the cause. But the problem was I was in a very heavy high meat eating state, and thus this initiative was fraught with resistance. I remember a particular case when I was inches away from getting a disciplinary action launched against me. But I and my team, we fought together, and we saw that our cause prevails. So I went to different hostels. I went to even hostel wings. I posted pamphlets. I would include student. I would collect a student group in a canteen. I would talk about this cause. And apart from these activities, I would organize a student group visit to abattoirs to see how treacherous the conditions are there. I would bring in a butcher to talk with the students to help them understand how emotionless things are in this meat industry. I call it very aggressive methods, but this worked really well for everybody, and it evoked emotions in students. And by the end of the first session, we had 13 people who had quit non-vegetarian food eating habits, and that was really a big success for us. Then we moved to national campaigns in association with PETA and HSI. HSI is another international NGO. So we worked on a campaign called Dishum, where we sent petitions to the President of India to free 2,800 monkeys that were banished for medical research. We also went ahead with HSI on cage-free hen campaign, where we educated people how terrible the conditions of chicken is in the poultry farm. So one chicken was kept in a place equivalent to 1 sheet of paper. So that's quite horrible. And that's when people started using cage-free eggs, and that acted as an incentive for the farmers who were in cage-free hen poultry farming. So together we just took it ahead, and the momentum that started worked well for us. Regarding the last bit of questions, It's a very hard question because I don't really have a favorite animal because I don't hate any animal. I'm
No, that
scared
was
of
a trick question.
I'm scared of some, especially when they're hungry or angry. If you specifically take me to one animal, I really find king penguins quite adorable and cute. So I would want to spend my time with them because they would not harm me when they're hungry. So that's about it.
Thanks so much, Shubham. It was a pleasure talking to you. I think with that, we wrap up the interview. Please let us know. We'll be online. So I have a question to the panel. So any of you could answer. And the first is, are the current market challenges changing the way we innovate in oil and gas? How can we upskill or build capability to support innovation in oil and gas? Would any of you like to go first?
I think I can take it from the perspective of modeling and reservoir engineering. So I feel that before the IT revolution, or as we call it, 4.0 reform, so we were mostly focused on physics-based research. I do not think that that part of the research has lost its eminence even now. But I think with this new solutions, as Pushpesh was mentioning, we have an enabler that can make us make us achieve our dreams very fast. So let's take an example of simulators. So now we have so much inclusion of IT and data science and machine learning and artificial intelligence into simulator science, and that is making simulation better and better every day. So according to me, if we combine these domains, as I mentioned, integrating existing things, it can be really powerful and it can put a lot of impetus on new innovations.
Thank you, Shubham. Any others who would like to answer that?
I just wanted to speak generally about, course. So I believe that indeed the challenges are forcing companies to change the way they do things, right? And beyond ensuring that people are, one key priority for every oil and gas company is to accelerate the adoption of digital capabilities. And a lot of companies, including Schlumberger, is doing everything they can to make sure that we innovate as fast as we possibly can as well, and make sure that our population or employees are fully reskilled and upskilled to stay ahead of the curve.
Thanks, Mervin. Can we go to the next question? If any of you, if you've answered that. Yeah.
Just to add to the same, everybody already mentioned that, but I think because of the amount of data the energy industry generates, and going forward, a lot of optimization and a lot of changes in technology is going to come from that, I think. And like image analysis, seismic capabilities has been going up based on that. And so that's the main frontier, I think, nowadays, because you already have data for that and you have historical data also. So there is no additional attempt that has to be made to like achieve that goal. You just have to start making that capabilities into your employees and your systems.
Thanks, Pushpesh. So can we go to the next question? Let's see. How does drilling automation affect the oil and gas labor market?
I'll probably jump on that one there. Okay. Yes, something that we've always gotten questions on every single project or implementation that we've done, even in the early days of development, was it's met at the rig site with IR 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution. There's always, some evolution going on, but it's the kind of revolution piece that causes gaps in the labor market that we have to actually challenge one another to take on head on and constructively. So as we, roll out drilling automation as the new way to drill, we certainly are doing so to actually increase, the performance of the rig sites, but also, and also increase the efficacy of delivery, but also increase the safety with regard to the current jobs that exist on the rig site. And that does mean moving people away from the red zone on the rig floor. What that doesn't necessarily mean is reducing the overall headcount of said organizations. We're actually going to be reducing some jobs, but then adding new jobs to then actually help us support this new tech. And those new jobs will be in a much less risky environment in, facilities, engineering, technical support teams to actually support this technology, service it, and grow the footprint of it around the world, right? So I think it's a change, not necessarily a reduction, and the change is to safer jobs. But the key challenge there, though, is there will be an education gap, and how do we navigate that as an industry? And I think the question that's yet to be answered, because this will be a big change, is how do we share that responsibility and the urgent responsibility, especially with the current state of the market, with our current companies, right, with our stakeholders and partners in this, and also possibly through educational institutions such as universities and secondary learning avenues as well. So I think the answer is probably a mix amongst all of those, but that is a challenge that we're going to have to take head on together.
Thanks, Andrew. Anyone else?
Just to add to that point, like the job market, as far as I've done reading multiple case studies of application of digital transformation or automation. So the best case scenario is always when you have machine and humans working together. They call it machine-human centaurs. So as Andrew said, the job description will change, but to achieve the harmony, you have to have machines, automation working with the human element into that.
So I think we have time for one last question, and it's about the perception of the industry and what message can we share with YPs in regards to the industry's efforts in the sustainability field.
So I'm going to take that one because I think it's very interesting. Yeah. I actually had a conversation earlier in the week about that. I understand that many people have a pretty bad perception of the industry today with all the talks about climate change. But like Shubham mentioned, the oil and gas is already diversifying into other energy segments. And we need to clarify the fact that the energy industry isn't limited to oil and gas. There are multiple other subsectors, right? And so whatever skills you've perhaps gained through your experience in the oil and gas industry or through your study in STEM disciplines will be applicable to all the other segments. So you can obviously find opportunities in these other segments. That's one. Secondly, the oil and gas industry will play a role in tackling climate change. And the fourth industrial revolution actually makes it all the more interesting and rewarding and creates lots of opportunities for young people, young professionals to play an active role. So we would leverage that wealth of experience that we have in the oil and gas industry to tackle some of these challenges that we've seen today with the energy transition, right? And then thirdly, is the fact that if you, as a millennial, is concerned about purpose and fulfilling purpose and tackling climate change, the energy industry provides you so much opportunity to do that. So you can tackle climate change in a broader way. You can tackle climate change in a productive way. You can tackle climate change in a very impactful way. So come on board if you're not here yet.
Mervin, there was a specific question on the FEL program. A viewer wants to know if there is a center in Nigeria.
Yes, absolutely. There's one, and we're actually trying to ramp up activities now. So you can get in touch with me and I will link you up with what we're doing.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. And I'm going to give this to all the panelists. And what are your thoughts on the energy transition? How do you see the impact of energy transition?
So if I can start with this one.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm so sorry to jump in, but I'm excited because I had this conversation just today with my e-mentor of SPE. So we were talking about how renewable energy can be a threat to oil and gas, and my view was that oil and gas renewable is not a threat to oil and gas. In fact, oil and gas is going to be the enabler for renewable, and we both converged on this idea. And a few examples to prove this is just a month ago, one of my colleagues was working on establishing the geothermal energy footprint of a particular country. And if you think that geothermal energy has nothing to do with the conventional oil and gas, then you might not be right there, because we have developed so much of physics and so much of knowledge about fluids and about rocks, that anything that concerns any form of energy that is related to this is going to essentially come from the sciences and the methods that we have developed. Obviously, there are going to be improvements on that. There are going to be transformations on that. But geothermal energy is like one example where oil and gas is going to be an enabler for it. Another example is like wind energy and hydro energy. If we are looking forward to establishment of these energy, then we can take help from the immense knowledge of fluid simulators that we have been developing in the industry from so long. So I believe it firmly that it is our industry is going to diversify into renewables by being an enabler for it, and we shouldn't be conflicted or concerned about the threat that it is going to pose, because there is no threat. That's my thing.
Yeah, I actually think that the energy transition only helps us innovate better and tackle the problem of climate change. Like Shubham already mentioned, a lot of the experiences we have in the oil industry will be relevant to tackling climate change. We see the application of this physics or chemistry or whatever it is we've been doing for a long time in geothermal. We see that playing a role as well in carbon capture and storage. So we're going to always be relevant, and we can actually drive very, very better change than anyone else could.
Just one thing to add there too, to jump in, totally agree with the panelists' answers thus far as well. But just to add on that, I mean, the world's population and energy demand isn't going anywhere, right? And the seat that oil and gas occupies at the table of the energy portfolio that we can offer the world to service this demand is a dominant seat. We occupy this dominant seat. And as Mervin, very aptly said, this competition only forces us to innovate, to stay competitive, and to stay relevant, just as any of our colleagues and cohorts at the energy portfolio table also have to innovate and compete as well. Regardless of what is pulled out of that, say, pie chart portfolio of the options to service the world's energy demand, each of those aspects, whether it's renewables or non-renewables, must be responsibly and economically applied, right? Whether that's wind or solar or natural gas or oil as well. And with that in mind, I think it was mentioned earlier in our chat, I think corporate social responsibility, known as CSR, is going to become more than just a buzzword, especially for oil and gas, because our competitors and stakeholders at the energy table are applying that very well. And it helps connect our energy delivery and the responsible way of doing it really directly with the end user and how that affects communities. And to go on to what Shubham was saying, connecting corporate social responsibility, or CSR, with our data, actually measure that as we stay competitive and stay relevant, right?
Just to end, I'll just say that I agree with all the comments that I've made. And as a matter of fact, we are currently working on a geothermal project. So as we can see that a lot of TWA's corporate social responsibility, and the companies can actually show off that how much they are contributing to that area of sustainability. And I think if a step change is required, right now energy demand is going to increase, not particularly in US, but it's coming from Africa and Asia. So the step change is required for renewable energy. That has to come from all the oil, and because they have the resources and talent to achieve that step change. So you have to include oil and gas companies into the conversation to develop those renewable energy schemes.
Thank you all for your brilliant answers and the session. And we have more questions though, but we need to let the audience, we are taking a little bit more of their time. So what I would like to request you is look at those comments in the social links, and when you can, please share your thoughts on them. It was a pleasure talking to all four of you. Viewers, again, this was SPE Live on TWA Energy Influencers 2020. And it is a new initiative of TWA, which is The Way Ahead, SPE's publication by and for young professionals. TWA editorial committee is made up of SPE YP members. You can visit www.spe.org/TWA to read the articles and subscribe to the newsletter. And this is the first of a series of sessions where we would host the energy influencers. Please do tune in on 3rd June, which is 2 Wednesdays from today, same time, 10 a.m. Houston time CDT, to talk to the next set of influencers and some amazing, brilliant work that they have done. And it will be moderated by TWA Committee Chief Editor, Asif Zafar. So it was a pleasure having you all listen to the influencers, and it was a pleasure having all the influencers on the show and talking to them and listening to their great work. With that, let's wrap it up. And wherever you are listening from in the world, have a great rest of the day. Good evening or good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.